All right, now we can jump into our timeline and start to figure out our timing. Originally, I laid this out as a 10-second composition, but I'm thinking this animation shouldn't take more than maybe 6 or 7 seconds. So let's start by thinking we want design to appear almost immediately. So we're going to jump ahead to 4 frames, and we're going to drag the beginning of design to that. So if you scroll backwards, you'll see it doesn't exist. For now, let's grab an illustration and animation, and we'll bring those back even further. So we got design pop in, and then we want that to breathe alone for, let's say, until 1 second, and then let's have animation animate on, and let's jump again to 2 seconds. And let's see. Now, to get a feel for the timing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to 3 seconds, where all of our primitive animation is completed by, and I'm going to hit N on my keyboard, or at any point you can grab these handles and slide them around to make your work area. Your workspace, which is defined by this little bar above the timeline, tells After Effects what section of the timeline you want to view when you play back. So now that we've got these 3 appearing in a good timing that we're happy with, we can start animating each individual one. So let's start with design. The first text reveal technique I'm going to show you is what I like to call a pop-in. It's one of the simplest way to reveal text, but I use it all the time in my professional work. How you make it is you click on the text layer you're going to be animating, and you can hit P on your keyboard, or you can toggle down and go to transform. And you are going to click the stopwatch next to position. And what that did is create our first keyframe. Keyframes are how we animate everything in After Effects. When you toggle down into the transform properties of a layer, you'll see all the properties we have to work with. If you see a stopwatch icon next to a value, that means you can animate it. When you click a stopwatch, a keyframe is generated wherever your playhead is at that specific moment. Think of keyframes as checkpoints for your animation. So for example, if we've got a circle and we set the scale of that circle to be 100% at, say, the 2-second mark, and then we bring it back to the 1-second mark, and we make a second keyframe where the scale is set to 0. After Effects will look between those keyframes, see that there's a difference, and animate what happens in between them. The last thing to keep in mind with keyframes is that once you've pressed the stopwatch once, any changes you make to that value where there isn't already a keyframe will make a new keyframe. So just be very mindful about where your playhead is when you're changing values to a property that you're animating. It's very easy to accidentally get extra keyframes where you don't want them and junk up your animation. Also keep in mind that if you change a transform property without the stopwatch selected, then none of that data will be recorded and you're not actually animating, you're just moving things around like you do in Illustrator or Photoshop. Okay, now that we've created a keyframe for position, we can drag it out a couple of frames, and then you want to move it whichever direction you want it to pop in from. So for this animation, I want it to pop in from the bottom, so I'm going to move it down. And then if I click play, you can see, oh, interesting. Already got some animation. Now, because I'm just working on this front section, I'm going to move my workspace to be a little bit smaller. And I'm going to make this a little bit shorter. There you go. Now, you might be saying to yourself, oh, okay, that's pretty boring. And that's because these keyframes are still linear. When we first create keyframes, they appear in the timeline as diamonds. That diamond shape means that they're linear. And linear keyframes, when they're played back, look very boring and unnatural. This is because linear keyframes maintain the same speed from beginning to the end, where in real life, the speed of movements they're constantly changing. So, for example, if you were to slide a glass across a table, it would start off very fast and then slow down as friction slows it to a stop. If a glass were to move linearly across the table, it would look very strange. So what we need to do is we need to change these by selecting them and right-clicking, and we can go to Keyframe Assistant and click Easy Ease. Now the change that occurs between the beginning and end of the keyframe will start slow, get faster in the middle, and then slow down at the end. Now this already looks more natural and better than before, but we want to really manipulate it and make it look a little bit more dynamic and really pop in. So what that means is that we really want it to start off very quickly and then slowly slide into its final position. So what we can do is we can select the keyframes we want to modify and click on the graph editor. And if it doesn't look like this, you can right click and make sure it says Edit Speed Graph. And then you can also click on this button, Fit All Graphs to View, so that you can see it more clearly. As I explained before, you can see the basic easy ease curve, and now we're going to modify it. So we're going to grab the handle on the right. We're going to grab this handle, we're going to push it all the way to the left, push this one all the way to the left as well. So now you can see it's going very, very fast at the beginning of the animation, and then it very quickly drops off into a slow push to where it needs to land. So if we play this back, you can see, boom, we've got a great pop in. Now what I refer to as the tail, which is where it settles into place, is pretty short. It's pretty dramatic how quickly it slows down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this end keyframe and I'm just going to slide it out a couple frames and play it, and we're going to see what that looks like. Wow, that's looking nice. Sliding in real comfy. Okay, with our first text layer popping in very nicely, we can move on to our second text reveal technique.